a lot of very unusual things happen in a person's life when they're shifting timelines, when they're going through a massive vibrational upgrade, not just within themselves, but within their life circumstance, within their relationships, their career, their living situation, their bodies, their health, their mind, the way they see themselves, their identity. A lot of very unusual side effects happen when we shift into a future version of ourselves, when we shift into a different timeline. And this video is going to share with you what I found to be the most common side effects of going through this powerful shift. Number one, if you relate with this, everything might be up in the air in your life. And you might feel up in the air in yourself, like not even knowing who you are, knowing where to go. You just don't know. And that uncertainty can be maddening. When there's the inner uncertainty, the identity confusion, and the actual reflection of that maybe in your career, finances, your living situation, it's all up in the air, but you know it's okay. There's a part of you that's always present that knows it's fine. It's more than fine. It's good. Change isn't always bad. You know, Marcus Aurelius, he says that without change, he puts it better than I'm about to put it, but something along the lines of if you eat an apple without change, you're not getting anything from that apple. He says it way better than that, but you get the idea. Change is not bad. Change is change. Change is necessary for us to upgrade, for us to make these shifts. It's a lot easier and safer to intend for a future, and then maybe even more exciting to visualize our future life. How would it feel like to be living your best life ever? Imagine it, feel it. What is your day like? What would you do with your time? How do you feel in your body? What kind of emotions do you feel? It's fun to think about that, right? But to go from where we actually are to that's the shift. That's the timeline shift. That's where it can get up in the air. That's where we have a lot of healing and sorting out to do. Redefining of ourselves we have to do. And we have to do that parallel to all the different changes and breakdowns maybe in our external life. Everything might feel up in the air, but deep down, you have this knowing it's all for a greater purpose. You might be also in just a wild, as I said, kind of transition right now. And you might find yourself oscillating from what I just said, from faith, from knowing everything's happening for a reason, like truly knowing it and being at peace, even with all the changes. But then at other times, when you look too closely at the reflection and you become too disconnected from that knowing, your mind can just go nuts. And you might start to find yourself catastrophizing everything. If things don't pick up soon, it's going to get real bad. If I don't figure this out today, it's not looking good. When you talk about gradual change, like probably the type of change you're accustomed to for part of your life, it rarely happened at such a speed that it created this complete overwhelm. But the difference is now, if you're actually shifting timelines, you're going from one reality to another one faster than before. So more change is happening in a more of a compressed time frame. And on one hand, during this change, you have opportunities and temporary periods where you are connected and you feel the faith and you know it's okay. You're sort of navigating it on a more of a spiritual bird's eye view, type of level, but not all the time. A few of us actually stay like that. And you might again find other times where you're almost like the scene is becoming like you're not disassociated anymore, and you're seeing the reality, the facts, the number in your bank account, the situation at work. People are getting laid off maybe, and you're like, oh my God, I could be next. I can't pretend that's not the case. Any day, I could be laid off. Then what? And sometimes your mind will start zooming in to the surface level, temporary, situational component to this change. And then it's very easy to completely flip-flop from being like soaring like an eagle above the clouds, I just know it's going to be okay, to what am I going to do? And you might be going back and forth, back and forth. I find this to be very helpful, to be honest. I've gone through these big upgrades a few times in my spiritual journey. They're fairly uncomfortable pretty much every time. I never want to go through it again. But what I find is that because of this exact sort of swinging pendulum effect I just discussed from faith to fear, I will put more time and energy and discipline into my spiritual practice. I'll meditate more. I will consciously try to tune in to my deeper self more and more and more. And that has a really good effect. That is very beneficial. And I'll oftentimes, in the midst of insane change, find myself more connected to the divine, at least some of the time, than ever. More than when things finally piece themselves together and settle in. I can sometimes be even more content and more happy when things are going crazy in my life, because out of like a coping mechanism, I defer to my inner self. Perhaps the most dicey transition I found myself in, where things got like very, very close. I got just to the brink of bankruptcy pretty much at one point. And I found myself somehow going from living a very normal, stable life with a nice home, a thriving business, a familiar neighborhood amongst family and people who I grew up with, to my whole family moving into a 21-foot travel trailer, supporting ourselves on credit card debt, in about $50,000, $60,000 of credit card debt, and on blind faith. As I was growing my business and my coaching and my YouTube channel, before anything really resulted in monetary reciprocation, that was kind of where I found myself. And every time I look at my accounts, the credit card bills were higher, the bank account was lower. And whenever I compared that to what I was earning, it looked hopeless. I looked completely screwed. And we had to make a lot of sacrifices in my family. I have 3 kids. Imagine 3 kids in a 21-foot travel trailer. That was my life. Young kids too. We had a dog and a cat to add to that. Packed house. I was so broke, I was shopping at Walmart. I had literally a $10 tennis shoes. I bought my shirts actually from H&M, and they were $6 a piece. I had a bunch of H&M shirts. I had like a $100 wardrobe max, like the whole wardrobe. I had almost no belongings. And things were crazy, honestly. Like when I allowed myself to look at the details and zoom in, as I mentioned before. But anytime I look back at that time, you know what I realized? I realized how happy I was. I realized how real of an experience that was. Challenging? Yeah, on many levels. Just the sheer fact of having an entire family compressed into a 21-foot travel trailer alone will drive most people nuts. The credit card debt was like a huge weight, boulder on my shoulders. And still, because I was so out of sorts, I would wake up every morning, I'd do breath work, I would meditate, I'd go to the beach, I'd film my video. I was like, I had to stay connected. And even when things got kind of crazy, looking back, they never got too crazy. Even with a very different lifestyle, we were happy. We would gather, my family and I, my kids and I, we'd gather and we'd play games at our little RV table. It's like this funny like faux granite. It's like plastic, but looks like granite. And we'd gather all, huddle up playing whatever. We'd play rummy, play cards, things like that. And we'd laugh. We'd have a good time. We'd go for a walk around the RV. The RV had a cool pool we'd use. The RV park had a cool pool we'd use. And you know what? Even when things got really bad, they were still something I look back with nostalgia, truly. Like, it warms my heart to think about those times. Even in the chaos, even in the transition, because my connection. You also might find that you're learning a lot. Even if things are challenging you right now, you're learning. You're learning from them. You're learning from your mistakes. And there might be quite a few of them. There might be problems arising, all giving you data, all helping you. And you're doing a lot of maybe note-taking, getting a lot of good feedback. My kickboxing instructor, Angel, he has this sort of mindset he tries to impress upon all of his students. It's kind of like related to fighting, but also to this video. It's the mindset is, it's always my turn. Always my turn. I won't use the words he used, but his words like screw your turn, my turn. And what does he mean by that? He means that even if you're getting punched at and someone kicks you, you take note. Okay, he kicked me in that way. And you're always gathering information. It's never not your turn. Even when you're losing, you're winning, is the mindset. Now, if you're not making a vibrational shift, you're stuck in victim mentality completely, blaming the world for your problems, and you're probably not watching a video like this. When you're shifting, it goes this way, but you're making use of it. You can handle it. You're handling it right now. If you're watching YouTube, you're not doing terrible, right? You can handle it. I know at times you think you can't, but yet, lo and behold, here you are. Probably chilling, watching YouTube on your phone, sitting there, because you've made it to this moment. You're handling it. You're learning a lot about yourself, a lot about life in general, a lot about maybe of the qualities and the qualities you'd benefit from cultivating. You know, when I wanted to expand my business a little while back, I became aware of how my mindset, I would say, was not really conducive to the version of myself I was trying to get to. I had to really start thinking like a higher level entrepreneur. I'd start thinking like just a different type. I had to change my whole thinking, my whole identity basically. But to discover that, I was just constantly faced with all these undesirable parts of myself, old patterns, old wounds, stinking thinking. But I said, okay. What can I do? How can I improve that? Maybe I'll read a book. There's a book right over there, actually, that's kind of symbolic of that time. And it's all, you're empowered. You can be empowered and struggling. You can be empowered and have times when you're having a hissy fit and playing the victim a little bit. But if you find yourself coming back to owning your life, knowing whatever's happening or not happening, that's on you. And it's okay. And you get it. You accept that. And you will use like a mad scientist anything life is giving you to your advantage, in your favor. It's always your turn. You're learning a lot if you're shifting timelines. You're almost at times, maybe not always, but sometimes you probably even appreciate the growth. Appreciate the challenges. I had this experience a little while ago where I was working through something for quite a while, several months, and it was really, really tough on me, just psychologically, emotionally. It was keeping me up at night. And when it finally resolved, and it resolved itself, and I had learned what I needed to learn, I found a moment where I was kind of sitting with myself, just sort of thinking about, all of what happened. And I had this awareness of what it did for me. It gave me a strength. It gave me a appreciation. It gave me an expansion of my identity. And in the end, it was very helpful. If you relate to that mindset, then you are probably shifting a heck of a lot faster than you might think. You're also noticing that you're getting what you need to support you. A lot of times you want to hear something crazy? Just 2 nights ago, I was getting ready to go to bed, and I saw this book on my pillow. And I didn't buy it. I didn't know why it was there. I thought for a moment it might be my wife's book. It looked like something she would read. But then I realized like she wouldn't put it on my pillow. It was her book. So I was like, why is this, where did this book come from? And I asked my wife, I said, where'd this book come from? She said, I don't know. Thought you bought it. I was like, no. And I was thinking like sometimes our neighbors get our packages and vice versa. It's a little bit annoying, honestly. And I thought, okay, that might have happened. But then I looked at the book and it looked like borderline a book like either me or Patty would buy. So I thought that would be really unique if the neighbors bought a book so similar to what we would normally have bought. So eventually I found out it was a gift, my friend Aaron Dowdy. He gifted me the book and it came in the mail. But for a minute there, it felt like God just placed his book on my pillow. And it was so fascinating because, you know, it was about like a spiritual journey. It was like very, very relevant to like my life right now, honestly. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that happens all the time. And it just turns out it was a gift that we didn't know who gave it to us. I'm not implying there was some magical book that just dropped from the heavens. But sometimes you might find yourself just coming across the message, the video, the book, the mentor figure. I've had many mentor figures that just sort of pop into my life that resonate and are so helpful and give me what I need at the time of my life. And even though like you might be going through things and changes in your outer life, you're like, you got the support system that's coming from information, from content, from all these different ways the universe can help support you. In fact, not long ago, I was reading this other book, 3 Feet from Gold, and it was so crazy because there's like a big arc to the story. There's like this guy, and I'm not saying I relate to all parts of it, but he's like kind of a bad person, I would say. And he has like a falling out with his girlfriend, and all these things kind of go south for him. And then he meets like a mentor. You know, it's typical like story arc. He meets a guide, a mentor, and the mentor helps him, and he starts to grow and change and evolve, and then things start to kind of pick up. But as I was going through one of my like arcs, you could say a smaller arc, it like went in perfect synchronicity with this guy's arc. And there was one day in particular when things like really turned around for me, and it just happened to be like the moment in the book I happened to be on as I sort of slowly make my way through it, where this guy has a very similar insight and things start to kind of go up for him. It was like, it was just so timely, so random that I even chose to read that book, which I've had for years. And then it just happened to go along with my journey. It's just cool. It's cool because we're basically always supported, is what I'm trying to say. And finally, just to touch on my friend, timeline shifting. What is that? Do you know what that is? I don't. I know what people say it is. I know what people want to believe it is. I know it definitely resembles experiences I've had in this lifetime. But I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if there's a thing called timeline shifts. What I'm talking about in this video goes beyond a timeline shift. It talks about the transformational journey that people are going through here on planet Earth. And for a long time, I thought I was nuts for thinking like this, until I realized I'm not alone here. There's a lot of other nutty people out there, come to find, that are also experiencing this phenomenon that some call it a timeline shift, some call it a dimensional shift, some call it a spiritual awakening, some say we're all nuts. I don't know. All I know that when I partake in this type of experience, and I have the mindset that I kind of hinted at, taking responsibility for my life. No one did this but myself. This is my life. Even if someone wrongs me, that's a reflection of me, of my consciousness. And as long as I learn from everything, the problems, the challenges, the experiences of feeling alone and betrayed by the gods, all these painful experiences, as long as I make use of them and do my part in transmuting them as best I can, and even appreciate and utilize the secondary benefits that can come along. For example, I've talked to a lot of people who, and I've gone through this too, have found themselves after their spiritual awakening, they like move back into like kind of a limiting, toxic living situation. And they complain, they say, what am I supposed to do? I can't stay high vibe living with them or this circumstance. But even that, there's a secondary benefit, because what does it do? It gives you an opportunity to learn how to find your own inner sanctuary, to make the best of it. There was a time when I was living in like a situation that was not ideal for me, and I complained about it until one day I just went for a walk and realized that there was a park nearby I can go to. It's a cemetery, actually. And so I started going into, I went to nature. I took myself into nature all the time. And that showed me that no matter where I am in life, I can find nature. No matter what's going on in your life, there's like an adaptation you can make, a virtue you can cultivate, a resilience, an endurance, a strength, a courage, a faith you can master more so. So I found that when we just roll with these challenges and experiences of the transformation process within life, and as long as we're learning and growing and expanding and owning our lot, then on more than one occasion, I found myself in such an upgraded situation that I would say, you know what, this certainly looks and seems like a freaking timeline shift, because my life is completely different. Not only in how it looks, but how it feels, the frequency, the energy, the alignment. So whether this is or is not a timeline shift, I don't personally care, because this way of life has allowed me and many of my clients to make these big jumps in themselves and in their life. And anyways, one of the ways I like to help people who are relating with this is once a month I run a monthly transformation ceremony. It's either a breath work or a past life regression. My wife helps as well. And these are just different modalities I've been trained in that I take people through for free. We all gather on Zoom and I guide a session. And it's very powerful stuff. If you want to be a part of it, it's completely free. I'll leave a link down below. Go ahead and click it. I'll send you the Zoom link and the details for the next one. And I'd love to see you there, my friend. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of it. And I'll see you hopefully in the next one. All right, bye.